What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Surprisingly, the mainline's first G1 Bumblebee to be released, I think in around 4 years, so it's wicked to finally see an 86 movie take on this classic character. So as we check out the details, I honestly can't say that I'm crazy when it comes around to this brand new head sculpt. I think they missed the mark big time, especially when compared alongside the Core Class Bumblebee, who I still think easily reigns supreme in the accuracy department. But as we check out the rest of the robot design, this here is looking solid. As we've seen from some of the more recent mini-bots, this guy has been detailed and sculpted front side to back, and that foot design is looking wicked. These are packing some really neat tricks, especially when it comes down to transformation. The back profile is tidy. For the most part, this guy looks very close to the animation model, with the exception of the lack of the spare tyre. I'm honestly not sure why they never included that as an extra accessory, as you definitely could have smacked it into that port. But overall, a really solid mainline Bumblebee, and I can't lie to you guys, I am now anticipating the inevitable cliff jumper retool. Checking out Bumblebee's accessories, this guy's packing his iconic G1 pistol, which is actually a great inclusion, because up until this point, all of the most recent Deluxe Class Bumblebees have included this massive rocket launcher, which to be fair did look badass, but it wasn't his iconic sidearm. The only way to get that into the collection would have been to track down the super elusive Centurion drone weaponizer pack. This guy should really have no issues in blasting the crap out of those Decepticons. Turning to Bee's posability, despite being a chunky monkey, this guy is most definitely packing a sting. So to begin with, the head is on a ball joint. This will look up, it will look down, as well as turn side to side. You can also make use out of this pretty wicked transformation joint to get this guy looking down upon his victims, which I thought went hard. When it comes around to the shoulders, these are on ball joints, so these will kick forwards, they'll kick backwards, as well as they're out to the side. There's also a sweet bicep cut, a 90-degree bend here in the elbow, wrist rotation, as well as a really decent waist joint. The hips can kick forwards, roughly to that far. They can then surprisingly kick back to that far, so that is a super dynamic range. You can totally have this guy doing the splits on the battlefield. He's also packing a really decent kick going out to the side. There is then a thigh joint, as well as a knee bend, which to be fair can go pretty much to 90. And then finally, as we check out the foot design, in addition to rocking the iconic ankle joint, you can also slightly make use out of the transformation joint to get the foot rocking forward, which to be fair, I definitely have found to be kind of useful. But as I'm sure you guys all know by now, to see what sting this bee is truly packing, now let's put him through the post test. Buzzing our way through some robot mode comparisons, first of all we are whacking out the Netflix Bumblebee, who to my surprise I still think is easily my favourite between the two. Now honestly, this is going to come down to personal preference, but I do just think that visually he appears to be a little more striking in comparison here to this brand new Studio Series version, which whilst is still a fantastic update, with the exception of no longer having to parts form to transform, I really don't find it to be that much of an improvement in comparison to this figure, which was released roughly 4 years ago. Throwing it back to the origins of this character, here we have the UFO Bumblebee, who I think has the better head sculpt between the two. I may try and swap these out because I think this head on this body may definitely be the superior look for Bumblebee. Kinda rounding things off when it comes around to G1 Bumblebee, here we have the Core Class figure, which to kind of go back to my earlier point, I still think by far has the better looking head sculpt. Surprisingly, this is pretty much spot on to the animation model, and I'm also a big fan of the cel shaded blue. It's kind of a shame to see them not include that with this brand new Studio Series Bumblebee, considering that right now that appears to be the hype, especially when it comes down to some of those Legacy and Studio Series 86 figures. Here he is, stacked up alongside one of the more recent mainline Bumblebees. We have the Animated Universe version. Next up we have what I imagine to be the soon-to-be replaced Studio Series 86 Cliff Jumper. Another Studio Series mini-bot, we have Deluxe Class Brawn. The Voyager Class Hot Rod, who is an absolute banger when it comes around to a mainline release. So maybe I had too high hopes when it came around to this Bumblebee. Beginning to round things off, here we have the Voyager Class Ironhide. Last but by no means least, the myth, the legend that is Earthrise Optimus Prime. And now that we have Bumblebee and both Dinobot Swoop, those pretty much conclude some of the 86 movie figures which I was the most excited for. The only one now left would be that upcoming Commander Class Optimus Prime, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that compares in comparison to both of these bad boys. Buzzing our way into Beast Beetle mode, the transformation is by far this guy's biggest and best selling point. So for the first step, you are going to want to take a hold of the chest plate and begin to angle this here downwards. We can then take a hold of both the head and the neck and also begin to bring these here forwards, just like that. Then what you'll do is spin around here to the side. We can now take the backpack and begin to angle this here upwards, exactly like this. We can then take a hold of the chest plate and proceed to snap that back into place. Now is where we can take a hold of the elbow joint and begin to slide those babies there forwards until they do gently click into place. We can now take the shoulders and begin to angle that there backwards and spin around here to this side and do exactly the same. So snap that into place and then rotate the shoulder here backwards. We can then make use out of this joint and proceed to bring that there forwards, and then what you'll do is rotate this here upwards. Honestly guys, I thought that was some really cool engineering, especially for a roughly mini bot scale robot. You'll then want to do exactly the same here for this side, so angle that baby there forwards and spin that sucker there upwards, exactly like that. Then for the next step, we can spin around here to the back of Bumblebee, and as I'm sure you guys would then guess, we are going to combine these pieces. So begin to angle this here inwards, just like that, and then make sure to do the same here on the opposite side. As I'm then sure you guys would guess, we are then going to proceed to combine the forearms exactly like that. Then for the next step, we are going to flip back up to the top of Bumblebee. We are now going to take the backpack and compress this here inwards exactly like that. Now at the very same time, you must make sure that these tabs then slide underneath the tail lights. Let's flip around here to this side and make sure that the same has also applied. Then what you'll do is come down here to the base of Bumblebee. So we are now going to make use out of these gap fillers. We are going to angle them there downwards. We're then going to take a hold of this panel and open it outwards. We can then take this section and snap that there into place. And as I'm sure you guys would then guess, do exactly the same on the opposite side. So angle that there downwards, take a hold of this panel and angle it here outwards. Snap that section there into place. Then what you'll do is spin around here to the front of Bumblebee and combine him directly down the middle. For a few finishing touches, we can then spin back around here to the back of Bee. We are now going to take a hold of these components and slide these here upwards just like that. And to be fair guys, these next few steps for a Bumblebee figure, I honestly thought was super impressive. So we are going to slide this tab into that slot. So you are going to want to angle this here backwards until this does very nicely click into place. Then what you'll do is take a hold of the hip joints and also begin to angle those there forwards. Now we are going to make use out of what was originally his knee joint, although this time round we are going to proceed to bend this here forwards like that, and at the very same time you are then going to want to make use out of this extra hinge joint here. So simultaneously you are then going to want to begin to kind of compress this here inwards, and that will transform into the front hood of Bumblebee. Now that's complete, we can then just make sure that everything does snap there into place, and there is Bumblebee now fully transformed. Stinging his way through the battlefield, here we have Bumblebee, now fully transformed into his beetle mode. And from a design perspective, this guy is looking funky. They appear to have slightly more inspired him off the original G1 Bumblebee toy, so proportionally, he is a little more stylistic, but to be fair guys, I still think he's looking pretty banging, especially as we check out the front end. This is surprisingly spot on to how Bumblebee's beetle did appear in the original G1 show. I'm also a big fan of how when in vehicle mode, this brand new Autobot insignia magically appears, and then when it does come round to robot mode, it completely vanishes. That is awesome. Even the back of the figure too has been for the most part really nicely detailed and painted, although unfortunately the colour mismatch here is looking rough. When it came round to that wicked Legacy United 5-pack, Sunstreaker was one complete yellow colour, so I honestly thought they put it past them. So I'm not quite sure why they decided to cast this in black plastic instead of yellow plastic, but overall it still is a really awesome looking vehicle form, and all four wheels are pinned on, so much like the original Penny Racer Bumblebee, this guy has no issues at all in burning rubber on the battlefield, to the point where I even had to check to see if those tyres were indeed packing rubber. Buzzing our way through some vehicle mode comparisons, first up we have the Eartherized Bumblebee, who was a proper Volkswagen Beetle. Now originally I was kind of hacked off that the brand new Studio Series version was lacking that official license, although after checking both of these bad boys out in hand, I really think they are trying to do two very different things. For example, the Netflix Bumblebee appears to be a slightly more realistic take on the character, especially when it comes down to proportions, whereas when we check out the new Studio Series version, it definitely does match better what we did see in the actual animation. So in terms of which one is better in this form, honestly guys, I really do think it's going to come down to personal preference. Here is how he stacks up against the Transformers core class Bumblebee, and it is kind of a shame to see this brand new Studio Series version again lacking that awesome cel shaded blue. I know the design team said that it was impossible due to how this new Bumblebee was manufactured, but considering that all of the most recent Legacy and Studio Series updates have come packing with them, I'm almost certain that if they really wanted to, maybe they could have found a way to have made it work. Here is how he stacks up against the animated universe Bumblebee, and 2024 most definitely is the year when it comes down to mainline Bumblebees. Both of these are mostly bangers, and do you guys know what they have in common with the exception of being both Bumblebees? They both have no issues in rolling out into battle. Next up we have the Studio Series 86 Cliffjumper, and I really can't help but think that Cliffjumper is now looking at his future when it comes down here to this Bumblebee. I guess it's only a matter of time. Next up we have the Deluxe Class 86 Movie Brawn, so despite there being quite a big difference when it came down to the robot mode, to be fair guys, when in vehicle mode they are more or less on par with each other. Pulling out some big guns, here we have the Voyager Class 86 Movie Ironhide. Then last but by no means least, the absolute myth, the legend that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Overall, the figure is definitely decent. The transformation though is an absolute treat. This thing has been so well engineered to the point where even the additional Autobot insignia is hidden away when in robot mode. And the vehicle mode has most definitely grown on me, to the point where I think it is easily the most animation accurate form that we've so far seen when it comes down to the main line. In terms of a recommendation, I would say that if you already own the Earthrise / Netflix Bumblebee, then maybe you can wait on this one, especially as he is part of that brand new Level A assortment which apparently will be hogging shelves for the next 12 months. Although, for those of you who did miss out on that super elusive release, then overall this definitely is a decent mainline Bumblebee. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this brand new Bumblebee. What do you guys think? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!